8th, 2017, I'd like to call a special meeting of the Fitchburg City Council to order. Councilor Donnelly, would you please lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please conduct the roll call?
President Kushmerek.
Present.
Councilor Bean.
Present.
Councilor Boschman.
Here.
Councilor Rizal.
Present.
Councilor Clark. Councilor DiNatale.
Here.
Councilor Donnelly.
Here.
Councilor Green. Councilor Joseph.
Here.
Councilor Caddy.
Here.
Councilor Tran.
Here.
Warrant for a special meeting of the City Council. A special meeting of the City Council will be held on Tuesday, March 28th, 2017, immediately following the Finance Committee, which is scheduled to begin at 6 p.m. Memorial Middle School Library, 615 Wellstone Street, Fitchburg, Mass. The agenda will consist of the following this evening. It'll be a report from the Finance Committee on the following matter. Communication from Mayor Stephen L. DiNatale regarding Year 43 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. Total recommended funding of $950,073. Councilors, this just needs to be read and included in our report this evening. The City of Fitchburg has adopted a contingency plan regarding allocation amounts. All proposed activities budgets will be proportionally increased or decreased from the estimated funding levels to match the actual allocation amounts. Only one item on the agenda tonight. Councilor DiNatale.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee met earlier this evening and took up the CDBG Year 43 block grant proposal, and the committee voted on each section. Public facilities and improvements was unanimous. Public services was 4-1. Economic development unanimous. Clearance activities unanimous. Rehab and preservation unanimous. Planning and administration unanimous.
Make a motion to accept the Finance Committee report, leaving out the Montezuma Interface Hospitality Network.
Second.
I have a motion and second to accept the Finance Committee report, leaving out the Montezuma Interfaith Hospitality Network funding source. Speaking to the motion, Councilor Boschman.
Speaking to the motion, Mr. President, first of all, I'd like to apologize to this council for not coming to the financial meeting. I was tied up and I had previous arrangements here going on in my life. On this motion, I'm asking on the public services that we make 2 cuts on the public services, please. That we cut our father's table, and we also cut MHIN by $4,000. I want to read something to you, and I think the reason why I say that these programs that we're cutting, United Neighborhood, the Montezuma Regional, Spartan Program, and the Boys and Girls Club has a great impact on our city, very much so. That these programs, if you watch TV and you watch the news, places like Chicago want to start programs like this because the teens get in trouble, because there's not enough in their community to do. In your area, Councilor Chris Merritt, your area, a child grows into the teens and their needs and challenges they face. The adolescents who turn to these branches for support are the most vulnerable to destructive decisions and often come from fragile families and neighborhoods. We understand the prevalence of poverty in our city and the effects of its lives and the children of teens in countless ways. In 2014, the high school graduating rate in Fitchburg High School was 76.4, compared to 86.1 throughout the state, at the state level. Data from 2014 Community Health Assessment tells us that Fitchburg schools, and we already read it, they suspend more students at Fitchburg High School than anywhere in our communities. Listen, these programs that we are cutting, the Boys and Girls Club, the Spartan, the Claygon neighborhood, do the job they're supposed to do. They help educate the students. They give them confidence. And this is what we want. A boy, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 have nothing to do in the city of Fitchburg. There's not enough for them to do. I'm asking the mayor. I know, Mayor, this is your program, and I know we have a disagreement. But I'm asking you because you always want a favor from me, and I'm asking you for a favor, that we cut off Artist Table. And we cut the MHIN, and we restore some of these funds back into these 3 or 4 programs. They're very vital for the community, and they help your community. They bring better people into the community, and it's worth it. It's worth it. So don't cut it. I'm asking you to cut those 2 programs. I believe we don't need it on our father's house. That there's plenty of programs out there that if they wanted help, and Mr. McLean could get the help, still do what he's supposed to do. So I'm asking you today, and I'm asking the council to talk to the mayor and support this program because it affects too many lives and they need it. Thank you.
Councilor Di Natale.
So I hear this talk every year, and first off, anybody who's upset about the amounts that are allocated, please take it up with your federal delegation, because they are the ones that tell us what money we get, number one. Number two, they set the rules. This areas you're talking about, Counselor, public services, the federal government's rule is we cannot spend more than 15% of what they give us, which is what we're giving everybody in public services. There is a debate about the allocation of that 15%. United Neighbors is getting the lion's share out of the 5 areas, 5 social service agencies, and the police and United Neighbors are getting 100,000 of the 145. They're getting over 2/3 of the allotment. All right? That's number one. Number two, between homeless advocacy and after-school programming, it's more than 70% of the allotment. So I sympathize with the statistics you gave us, but people have to understand at home, we are not allowed to spend more than what the feds say we can spend, which is 15%. Now, if you want to cut one of these areas and move it to one of these other programs, that's another discussion. But I just want it known for the public that no matter what we do, economically, everybody's going to get hit because we get less and less every year. We've been funding the Drug Enforcement and Patrol Program for years. They're getting a $14,000 reduction. United Neighbors is getting a $9,000 reduction. Boys and Girls is getting $1,000. MIHN is getting $1,000. And the Our Father's House is the first one on this list. So I understand your point to a degree, but we're kind of hamstrung by the feds. They're telling us we can't spend X amount above what they give us. So I don't believe it's right to cut off other programs entirely in deference to one other. Okay? Everybody is getting reduced. So that's how I take this. So I don't want the public to construe this tonight to mean that we don't care about our children and our poor people. I know we like to play the violin every time these things come up. Please don't believe it. You got a problem with the amounts, please take it up with supposedly our representatives in Congress who work for the people. That's where your beef is. Thank you.
Councilor Caddy, did you have your hand up? Councilor Boschman.
Mr. President, I understand what he's saying, and I disagree with him. We still can keep the 15% into the social programs that I want, that I believe in, the programs that are there, and the government allows us to put them in. Second of all, United Neighborhoods of Clegon takes care of Councilor Joseph Ward, Councilor Bezar's ward, Councilor Joe Caddy's ward, Amy Green's ward, and Councilor Boschman. So do the math. 6 divided into 44. What's that come down to, Councilor? What? 6,000 something? $7,000 in some odd cents per ward. They're not just working for Clegon. They're working for the entire city. Boys and Girls Club. They take 313 students from Fitchburg. An average cost of $30 a head. They don't get $30 a head. We give them, what, $6,500, if I'm not mistaken, according to the report I read? Come on, it doesn't even cover for their gas, for God's sakes, and what they're doing. They're doing something good on our city. The Sparta Club. The Chief, I hate to use you, but you were at the meeting when they first come in front of the planning board. And he was fighting for the Sparta Club because he believes it, because it's an important program. We just can't keep on putting on giving it to the police department to arrest. Why don't we have these kind of programs? and give it to them and see where it goes. Look at the Boys and Girls Club. I spent 2.5 hours with her. And I spend a lot of times at the YMCA, and their programs work. They help them read. They help them learn. I mean, really. I mean, what are we doing? We're going backwards, not forward. I understand we don't have a lot of money, and I agree with you. But I'm not taking, this program was never in existence. Yes, we have the homeless, but we had the homeless all my life. And all of a sudden, they're important, for God's sakes. Really, I believe that we're making a big mistake. It's a big mistake. That's all I have to say.
Councilors, we have a motion and second on the floor to accept the recommendations excluding Montechusett Interfaith Hospitality Network. I'm inclined to put this through to a vote with no. Councilor, do you have a new point to add?
Yes, I do.
Councilor Di Natale.
So if I understand right, we're supposed to cast aside our homeless population in Fitchburg. I am not going to speak for prior administrations and why they chose not to fund homelessness. Okay? Number one. Number two, there are many children that are homeless in Fitchburg. Too many. Do we forget about them? And number two, and I ask this every year, what makes these 5 programs so special over every other program in the city of Fitchburg? Are there not other after-school programs in the city of Fitchburg? Are there not other programs that service children and young families across Fitchburg that we don't give a dime to? Even when they come forward and ask for it, we don't give them anything? So you can't have your cake and eat it too. These organizations, in my opinion, and there is no discussion about the value they bring. I'm so sick and tired of hearing this. No one is saying they don't do good work. But unfortunately, I have to say, they're the fortunate ones because they're getting something. There's a lot of organizations in the city who get bupkis. And they get omitted from these discussions every year. So I have a problem sitting here and having to listen and have the violin played about why these organizations are critical. No one is saying they aren't. All right? I'd like to advocate on the multiple organizations that don't get anything. You going to speak for them too? Thank you.
I have a motion and second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? One in opposition.
I make a motion to cut the $8,000 from MIHN and distribute it to the 3 programs that service the youth.
Councilor, we can't allocate or reallocate the funding.
Right,
You can simply ask for a cut.
Cut.
Would you prefer for the motion to be in the affirmative or in the negative? Would you prefer for it to be just put through a vote to pass? Is it fine to read like a cut?
Motion
Okay.
was to cut $8,000 from
All right.
MIHN.
All right.
Yep.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
I have a motion and second to cut funding from MIHN. Speaking to the motion, Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're looking at $8,000 to help homeless families. $8,000, and we want to cut that. I know I won't be voting for that motion. Thank you.
Councilor Tran, I'll just add, I couldn't agree more. I think, I understand the reservations, particularly of Councilor Joseph, in funding this particular organization, but I would add that, in terms of municipal services and funding that go into helping and assisting with the homeless, we do very little. This is $8,000 that I believe is well funded to help an organization that specifically helps families from Fitchburg. It shouldn't matter what town they're receiving the services in. They receive proper services to help families who need it. And I think we should continue to fund programs such as that. Thank you. Councilor Beazall?
Thank you. When we're talking about these public services, we're talking about the same kids. Same kids that use the YMCA, the same kids that use the Boys and Girls Club, the same kids that use the homeless facilities, it's all the same kids. So it doesn't matter, if you're going to give one or more to lesser, it doesn't matter. All of the kids in Fitchburg are using these. They're homeless kids. They're, I hear Andre talk about all the time, the homeless population of kids that go to our schools. So when you're looking at public services, I group them together and say they're public services. And it's saying right here, homeless families. So I'm not willing to cut $8,000 out, knowing that it's a homeless family. It means family. It means young kids, kids that probably use, like I said, Playground Community Center, that use Boys and Girls Club, that use YMCA. It's the same thing when you're talking about public services, okay? So I definitely would not support cutting the $8,000.
Counselor Joseph.
My only problem with this organization from the beginning is a group of people got together and decided they wanted to do something for the community. And they decided to do it through the Interfaith Group, which is a group of churches from the surrounding areas. Okay? But then they came to us to fund it, to help fund it. It's just like saying, I'm going to decide that I want to feed lunches to the kids that are in Leominster in the hotels, and I know that there's a group that does that. Do they come to the Leominster group for CDBG money in order to feed those people? No, they raise their money because that's their cause and that's their calling and that's what they believe in. And I just think that we're continuing to use the government funds to support an idea that was done by a private group that should be supporting it themselves. And that's all I've ever had a problem with this. I have no problem with what they're doing. They're doing God's work. They're helping the people. They're an interfaith hospitality network that's being supplied money through the government. So to me, it's just counterintuitive as to what they're originally planned to do. And they've been thrown out of so many different places because of codes and stuff like that, but they still continue on, which is a good, noble thing for them, but why do we continue to support them financially?
Counselor Joseph, I'd add only that, with the exception of the police drug enforcement and patrol program, each of those organizations are private, nonprofit organizations that, in theory, could do their own fundraising or apply for grants. So that logic seems to apply to each of those organizations. To Councilor Di Natale's earlier point, I mean, there's dozens of organizations that are worthy of support, and I think it's up to us and the planning board and the mayor to say what are the organizations and what are the causes that need the most help. I'd say, back to my earlier point, that homelessness receives very little attention from our municipal government, and that's not an insult or taking away from what we do, but there's limited funding, and this is where the mayor is, seemingly trying to continue to target, homelessness and its pervasiveness throughout our community. So I think for $8,000, it provides a worthy cause, and certainly I think it's difficult for each of these organizations to do 100% fundraising, because there's just not, unfortunately, there just isn't enough out there to help each of them through private philanthropy and grant funding. Councillor Caddy.
So I guess if you are a parent, single parent, or two parents with a child, and you're homeless, my guess would be if one of those people could come and speak in front of us, I think they would say that this emergency service, because it's not long-term, it's short-term. I guess with my experience as a policeman, over the years being as a policeman, you would cross paths with people like this, and if you don't have somebody to call to help the family, it's stressful, but what I'm saying is that $8,000 isn't a lot of money, and this is providing an emergency service for people who really need it. So I just can't see, if you figure how much $8,000 is in this budget, it's like .60 in this major budget. So I think it would be awful to not vote on this or not to support this.
Councillor Boschman.
$8,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to me. $8,000 is a lot of money. But I want to ask the council something. Do you know how many homeless people we have, how many homeless families we have in the city of Pittsburgh right now? Do any of you know? I know there's seven homeless families, and there's a charitable organization that's taking care of them, and they're right in our city. Seven homeless families in their own homes. So I don't mind helping out, and I want to help out. But I feel, stay in Fitchburg, live in Fitchburg, and I'll help you in Fitchburg. That's how I feel. It's easy for somebody to come out and say, I live in Fitchburg, and I'm homeless. But you're born and raised here, I'll give you the shirt off my back. That's it.
I have a motion and second to cut $8,000 from MIHN. All those in favor? All those in favor of the cut? 2 in opposition. All those opposed? There were only 2 in the affirmative. The motion fails.
Proud of it, too.
Move
And
to
proud.
approve the 8,000.
Second.
I have a motion and second to approve the $8,000 to Montechusett Interfaith Hospitality Network. Speaking to the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hands up, please. 2 in opposition. Motion carries.
Move adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, councilors.